friend die. You know, it's like, hey, you want to come over and meet Jim? Oh yeah, man, I haven't seen him in forever. Well, he's dead. You know, and it's just like this new Google logo is just driving me nuts, man. Like, of all the things to drive me nuts, right? Like, we got NSA surveillance, we got the Clinton email thing going on, and what drives me nuts? Oh, well, the Google logo change. That's what, of all things. Well, anyway, it's sort of a news item anyway. The logo is bearing a bit more resemblance to the new Google parent company, Alphabet. Alphabet's word mark has a similarly unadorned look, i.e. flat and boring. This new update makes the two companies' design language fall more in line. And I read before that they had like 41 different shades of blue they were experimenting with for one of the O's, or is it the L? No, the L's green, I think. I don't know. I have an Android phone. I should just go to Google now and look. I'm too lazy. But it's just like, you need a committee to make a logo like that, right? And it's just, it has no heart. There's no soul to this thing. It's just a committee-made logo. It's like Pravda, It's like this logo pops up and it's like, yes, our committee of 45 comrades put this logo together, and it's just drives me nuts, man. But of course, Google can do what Google's gonna do. I don't have to like it though. As Google's video introducing the new logo notes, the word mark has been evolving ever since it was first created back in '98. This is easily the biggest change since 1999, though, funnily enough, when Google first cleaned up the lettering and settled on its first 4 colors. Since then, the logo has been flattened out more and more, with today's update representing a huge leap. In addition to changing up the word mark, Google is now changing the tiny G logo that you see on the browser tabs. So now it's going to be an uppercase G that's striped in all 4 of Google's silly primary colors. Google also says that the new design will be rolling out across all of its products soon. In fact, it's already on Google homepage with a cute little animation that wipes away the old logo and draws in a new one. And I hate it. Also, it doesn't line up. That's another thing. It doesn't line at the top of the G does not line up with the tops of the O's, and it hurts. It just hurts my head. The G is too round too. It should be oval. I just hate it so much, and I don't know why. Right? Like, of all the things to get me upset, it's the Google logo changing. You'd think it would be like mass genocide somewhere, or you'd think it would be like, I don't know, something else really bad happening. But no, it's the Google logo getting changed that makes me upset. So go figure. And I think that almost points to, so we're going to get deep now. You see, you thought I was just going to rant about the Google logo. You'd be wrong. That gets into a topic of discussion that is kind of interesting as well, which is that we get upset about really mundane things that don't actually matter. They're totally inconsequential. Like, Google changes the logo. Big whoop. Big freaking deal. Who cares? Google changes the logo. But I'm upset about it. Why am I upset about it? It's just like, it's the Google logo. Who cares? You'd think I would be mad about like NSA surveillance or the Hillary Clinton emails or the war in Iraq or the Iran nuclear deal, something like that. Instead, I'm upset about a logo change. It seems a little bit inconsequential. And it's not just me. There are a lot of people, in fact, possibly even a majority of people, who will get upset about mundane little stupid things that are not worth getting upset about at all. But we get upset about them anyway. And that's one of the things that we have with the Google logo, just using it as an example, because I realized how petty I am, that I care about the Google logo when there's so many more important things going on. Now, I'm still upset about the Google logo. I will probably never stop being upset about the Google logo. It's almost as bad as Microsoft. When Microsoft changed the whole look of the Windows logo, that made me really, really mad too. I actually liked the change to XP. It's a weird thing. Granted, I was a little kid when that happened, but I actually liked the change to XP. The new logo they started using from 2000 to XP, and I actually liked that. And then from Windows, I think it's 8 is when they started doing it. I know they weren't doing it on 7 because I have that. But on 8, they shifted to like this flat logo that was just 4 squares, and that, flat color, no color, in fact, white on Windows 10. And it just looks bad. Like, how do I tell them? Can I call up Satya Nadella? I can't remember how you pronounce his name. Can I call up the CEO of of Microsoft, and tell him, like, dude, the logo looks bad. Please change it. I know you're going for brand recognition, but guess what? I recognize the old Windows logo. I recognize the Windows logo from 1998, I recognize the Windows NT logo, the 2000 logo, the 95, 94, 98, the Windows 3.1. All these things, I recognize them. Quit changing around your dang logos. It's like when Walmart took out the smiley face. Gosh, you guys. Design change drives me nuts sometimes, and I don't know why. Like maybe a little bit. I got a little bit of the tism going on with the logo stuff. Like it shouldn't bother me. It's this totally irrational thing to get upset about, but I do anyway. And again, like I was saying, we get upset about petty, stupid things when it comes right down to it. A favorite band of ours changes genres and decides to come out with some sort of experimental, like, ambient noise album. And we get upset about that because we wanted them to do an indie rock album. Why did you do that, Ecstasy of St. Teresa? That was the new album. Come on. But anyway, we get upset about just like petty things. Ecstasy of St. Teresa can come out with an ambient, weird sort of noise electronic Bjork sounding album in 2000 instead of doing the really good shoegaze punk stuff that they were doing in the mid 90s. And that's okay. I shouldn't get upset about that, but I do. Right. And that's like, it's petty, but we all get upset about silly things like that. And it made me realize, me getting upset about these things made me realize I finally get why we're so distracted. Because getting upset at the big issues sort of has a sense of futility, where if I'm upset at say, the United States government, then it's not like I can just vote my problems away. Like I can't vote somebody in who's going to get rid of the NSA. I can't vote somebody in who's going to fix the Hillary Clinton email problems, right? Like I can't do that. So what do? I get upset about stupid things that don't matter because there's more chance of me being able to change that than not, sort of. At least I have that idea in my head. Like I think, well, there's more chance of me being able to petition like the CEO of Google to be able to fix this crap, as opposed to like, emailing Obama and saying like, dude, please fix this NSA stuff, or like, dude, come on, healthcare is kind of broken. Let's get with it. There's more chance of me being able to fix the Google problem than there is with me being able to fix the National Security Agency problem. And that's kind of a problem, actually, that I think that way possibly. But I don't know. I just came to a weird realization last night. And I couldn't sleep because of that, because of that realization. So I can legitimately say I lost sleep over the new Google logo. And I am an idiot for doing that. I am such an idiot for losing sleep over this stupid Google logo. I don't know why I'm upset about it. I really shouldn't be. But there are good things going on. This morning, there was the Atlas V launch, so we have that. The Atlas V is a rocket that's being launched from Kazakhstan. That's going to be going up to the International Space Station to drop off a few astronauts. Pretty cool stuff. This morning, as in like 12-something a.m., an Atlas V rocket launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Oh, pardon, I thought it launched from Kazakhstan, carrying a U.S. Navy communications satellite into space. Oh, this is a different satellite launch. I'm an idiot. It was another smooth takeoff for the United Launch Alliance. Yeah, see, to explain, there were two different rocket launches that I was going to talk about today, and I got one mixed up with the other one. So there is the one that went to the ISS, and then there's this one as well that launched a satellite. Now, this one's important too, don't worry. This one was carrying a communication satellite into space. And according to The Verge, it was another smooth takeoff for the United Launch Alliance, the company that manufactures the Atlas V. It was a particularly beautiful launch as well. The rocket left a spectacular, that's a tough one, multicolored trail in its wake as it ascended into space. The rocket then lifted off at around 6:18 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning, just as the Florida sun was peeking out over the what is it with me? Over the horizon. Over the horizon. I forgot how to speak English. According to ULA officials, man, the sunlight caught the rocket's plume tail just at the right angle, creating a very colorful display, actually. Numerous spectators of the launch snapped some photos of the amazing event, and they posted them on Twitter. Of course, you can check them out. Half of them are taken from what looks like Nokia phones. They look really terrible. Some of them were taken with Samsung Galaxy phones, and they look much better. And some were taken with iPhones, and they look like they were taken on SLR, so go figure. But yeah, the rocket launch was successful. Now we have a new communication satellite going up into space. And there's something so cool about that to me, where in my generation, we don't really think about it because it's just always been there. It's kind of like the previous generation, our parents don't really think about cars because cars have just sort of always been there. Like my grandfather was born in 1927, and in rural Pennsylvania where he was, there weren't cars all the time. People were still riding horses around, and it's kind of weird to think about that my grandfather lived in a time before everyone owned a car. That's just weird to think about. And your grandfather, you're probably older than me, your grandfather may have lived in the earlier 1900s when there was, horses and buggies were commonplace. And that's just kind of odd to think about. And so it's not odd for you to think about because that's your grandfather, right? It's just like, well, it was a different time and now we all have cars. And for me, it's the same thing with the internet, where we all have cars and we also all have internet, where my parents didn't always have access to the internet. I mean, that's really weird to think about to me, because they'll be telling me stories about when they were kids and they were wondering what such and such was. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just look it up? And then I realized, oh, wait, you didn't have the World Wide Web in the 1960s and 70s. That's kind of strange, actually. In fact, you didn't get it until 94, or 93, whenever Mosaic came out, and there was the Next PC and all these different things. Anyway, Tim Berners-Lee et al. So it's just weird to think about. So the communication satellite thing is sort of similar, where we have not always had communication satellites. It's integral to radio, to communications on the internet. It's integral to every single aspect of our life, is to have stuff in space that works. And we haven't always had that. And we've had such a massive change just in the last few years. And I'm noticing that things that we can't live without are becoming faster and faster, or more quickly implemented, I should say, as time goes by. Like, we have smartphones now, and we didn't have smartphones in 2006. I mean, we didn't. Well, okay, we did. The BlackBerry was a thing, but most of us had flip phones in 2006. I had a flip phone in 2006. I was 11 years old. My first phone was a Virgin Mobile flip phone, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I really wanted a BlackBerry. So go figure. And then Apple comes out with the iPhone and totally changes the world, basically. I mean, not that they were the first to come out with a smartphone, but they were the first popular smartphone, I guess, so whatever. So the iPhone comes out in 2007, and suddenly now everyone has a smartphone. You're like lame if you don't have a smartphone. Things are changing much, much quicker as time goes by. Things are changing a lot, and it's getting almost exponential in growth, where we're seeing this curve that's getting tighter and tighter in terms of adoption rates. And it's really interesting for new devices that we're seeing people using these new devices so much quicker than we were in the past. It's kind of like the transistor radio. When it came out, it's like, boom, everyone has a transistor radio now. Just everyone had one in the whenever they came out in the late 50s. Everyone just had a transistor radio. Same as going for smartphones, where everyone just suddenly has them, despite the fact that some of the time they're actually prohibitively expensive. I mean, I see people who are, not to judge, of course, this is not a judgmental statement, but I see people who are using, say, an EBT card at the gas station. Again, that's fine, but they also have a Samsung Galaxy S or whatever, and I'm like, man, how do you do that? Like, I can't afford a Samsung Galaxy S. Of course, I don't have EBT either, but I couldn't afford that. It's just weird to think about, because we're financing things like this. We're financing our cars. Like, we're getting cars we can't afford because we want to have the next best thing. And we're getting phones that we're financing that we can't afford because we need to have the next best thing. And we're financing laptops and TVs and all these different things. It's like, oh, no, it's okay. It's on layaway. I don't want to really go into debt to be the next coolest thing. Thank you very much. So I'll avoid that as much as I can. But I wonder what the next big trend is going to be moving forward. Like, we have smartphones, and we can always theorize. Like, in the 90s, they probably said that flying cars are going to be the next big thing. Actually, that's sort of always going to be the next big thing, is flying cars. I'm still waiting for that. So I wonder what the really next big thing is. Like, what is it actually? Is it going to be VR? Is it going to be 3D printing? Well, if so, I have good news for you. I have a good nose for you. I do have a big nose. I have good news for you. An affordable, self-correcting, multi-material 3D printing platform is now available. According to Ars Technica, research on 3D printing, which is also called additive manufacturing, has increased the accessibility of the technology to the general public. Today, you can even buy your own 3D printer, although at a kind of steep price if you want to get a good one. The cost of these systems has actually hindered their wide-scale use. Recently, an interdisciplinary team at MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, or CSAIL, I think, has partly addressed this limitation by building a relatively cheap printer that can handle multiple materials. Now, something that should probably be explained about 3D printers is generally when you buy a 3D printer, it handles just one material. Now, there are different ones you can use. I'm only familiar really with resin. There's a certain type of resin filament that you can use, but there's also like a bead hopper system that they were trying out for a little while. I don't know if that got widespread adoption. There's also sort of an ABS plastic, and then there's also a PVC, polyethylene, all sorts of different materials that can be used with a 3D printer. There's also aluminum. Laser sintering is an option. So a 3D printer that could handle at least two of those methods is kind of cool. So from the beginning, the team that built this was interested in a 3D printing platform that relied on commercial off-the-shelf parts. Over the past 3 years, they've developed an impressive multi-material 3D printing platform that only costs around $7,000, over an order of magnitude cheaper than the multi-material systems that we currently have, other than this one, obviously. The printer is 1.2 meters by 0.6 meters by 1 meter. That's in width, length, and height. So it's 1.2 meters wide, 0.6 meters long, and 1 meter in height. The frame is made of aluminium, or aluminum for us Yanks, attached to UV blocking acrylic sheets. An exhaust duct is also connected to the rear of the panel, where 2 electric fans are used to expel gases and particulates, which may or may not give you lung cancer, by the way. So if you are around 3D printers, I would actually recommend wearing a respirator. That seems like way overkill, right? Like that seems so overkill. But actually, I'm serious, if you're around 3D printers, I would seriously recommend wearing a respirator, because there are particulates that are flying around, and you don't want plastic in your lungs, trust me. So you don't want to contract, say, mesothelioma and end up like Doug on the commercials. You don't want to do that. So in addition to the price point, which is very attractive, scientists and engineers were able to design a system with significant improvements over existing technologies. A single CPU is in charge of all the printer subsystems. I will eat my hat if it's not a ARM processor, although it could be an Intel Atom, in which case I'll have to eat my hat. Oh well. A single CPU is in charge of all that, though, and it has a material feeding subsystem, print head modules, and UV curing UV curing modules. I just got new UV curlers for my hair. It's so nice. Anyway, this is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world of science. It's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We have several correspondents currently at the Timothy White March, which is downtown right now, and we are bringing you coverage. We're actually talking about Good Samaritan laws as well. We have some people down there on the ground. Hopefully we're going to get some call-ins, and we'll get some more info from them on the ground there downtown about the Timothy White, Lieutenant Commander Timothy White March. So we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes right here. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Also on the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. It gives President Obama the support he needs for the Iran nuclear deal to survive. Maryland Democrat Barbara Mikulski becomes the 34th senator to back the agreement.
What Mikulski's decision means is that there are the votes to sustain a veto. That means the Iran deal goes through. This has always been the strategy by the Obama administration.
Fox Radio's Chad Bergam in Washington. In Baltimore, the first hearing for 6 police officers charged in the death of suspect Freddie Gray.
Tell the truth and stop the lies. Freddie Gray didn't have to die.
Protesters outside the Baltimore Circuit Court. Gray died of a spinal injury in April after being in custody for a week. U.S. businesses added jobs at a steady clip last month. A survey by the payroll firm ADP says private companies added 190,000 jobs, with the biggest gains in construction and manufacturing. Fox News, we report, you decide.
There's more to Fox. So never minding the Google logo change, which is very annoying, there are quite a few other things going on in the world today. For instance, we just this morning had a launch of a satellite, which is always cool. I love space launches. There's not much of anything cooler than a space launch. We also today, of course, have the Timothy White March, which is downtown in front of the Federal Building, I believe on Georgia Avenue. We're expecting a few call-ins today. We're going to get some more info out of some of the people who are on the ground there. We have some correspondence there, and we'll be bringing you more updates on that as it comes out. Number to call in, by the way, is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. In fact, wow, I'm magic. We have a call right now. And caller, you are on the air. What's up?
Hi. Hello, Russell. This is Mr. Judd, and I just left the rally for Lieutenant Commander Timothy White.
Awesome, great. What street was that on? Do you remember?
And they're still rallying. It's on Georgia. It's basically at Georgia and ML King is where they're at. And had a nice turnout from the media down there. The newspaper was there, the Times Free Press. And then WDF was there. We had people that stood silently by, and we had people that are still down there, and they have their signs and letting the world and the Navy and Barack Hussein Obama know that this is not going to be tolerated.
So you just left the march? How many people were there?
Oh, you're probably asking the wrong people there. I know this. Let's see. There were people coming and going. So there's well over a dozen, maybe 15, 20 there at one time, and then there were people in and out.
Okay, great. Well, that's a pretty good turnout for such a grassroots movement. You got any other news to share?
It was a great turnout. So, and I'm sure DT, the great David, the one and only the David Tulis will give you an update, as well as Confederate Mike was down there. Now, he slipped and fell. He's clumsy as I don't know what, but he slipped and fell, but he's okay. He's going to be back on his show at 2 o'clock.
Okay, good. Well, 2 o'clock we'll be expecting him, and I'll be here waiting for him. Got any other things to share with us?
Yeah, the big crowd was down there for the return of Tech.
Of
Tex
course.
was down there, and my goodness, were there throngs of people.
Was he crowd surfing?
Oh, well, no. He said he was a little saddle sore.
Oh, I gotcha.
He's still a little saddle sore, and he's moving a little slow, but he said he's glad to be off that horse and back on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240.
Oh, we're glad to have him back.
All right, have a good one. Thanks.
Thanks, you too. Yeah, that's Tex, the Cowboy Up Tex. He's on from 6 to 7 every weekday right here on Hot News Talk Radio. He's always crowd surfing, except unfortunately this time he has injured himself riding horses. I mean, I couldn't ride a horse for 5 minutes, and this guy rides one for 5 hours, so you can't really blame him. Normally he crowd surfs, but unfortunately he has not done that today. Oh, well, the March for Timothy White, by the way, that's Lieutenant Commander Timothy White, is downtown Georgia, and ML King is where they are. If you know the city better than I do, then you know where that is. It's Georgia Avenue. I'm kidding. Georgia Avenue and ML King. That's a march for Lieutenant Commander Timothy White. If you want to go by and say hi, we have a few people from Hot News Talk Radio down there. And we also have signs and American flags and all sorts of cool patriotic things down there at Georgia Avenue and ML King. So definitely go check that out. There's a march. It's meant to show support for Lieutenant Commander Timothy White, who is oddly enough still being persecuted by the feds because he defended himself, which is kind of an odd move, actually, on the side of the feds, but go figure. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and you're listening to Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more here on Hot News Talk Radio. And, this is actually the only local tech show in our area. Local in our area. Oh, pretty redundant. This is the only local tech show I'm aware of anyway that's in our area. And we're covering things that nobody else really wants to talk about, kind of like the Clinton emails. Now, people have been talking about the Clinton emails, but not in the way that I'm going to, because I'm better than everyone else. No, what's happening is people are talking about the Clinton emails, but they're not accounting for backups. They're not accounting for backup devices either, and they're actually not accounting for what method was used for email delivery, because that's actually really important. So we're going to be talking about that in just a second here. Actually, right now, we're going to be talking about that. Why not? So while she was Secretary of the State, according to the Washington Post, Mrs. Clinton, I should say, that's her married name, Mrs. Clinton wrote and sent about 6 emails using her private server that allegedly contained what government officials are now saying is classified information, according to thousands of emails released by the State Department. So although government officials deemed the emails classified after Clinton left office, they could complicate her efforts to move beyond the political fallout from that controversy, because we keep seeing emails being released over and over again. And it could be that there's sort of a controlled distribution of those emails. I would not be surprised at all to discover that there's someone in the State Department who's saying, okay, we need to wait a few days before we release this one, and we'll wait a few days before we release this one, and it all keeps piling up, and she feels like she's cracking up. So although government officials deemed the emails to be classified after she left office, they could complicate her efforts to actually get into the White House in a very House of Cards-esque way. So the classified emails contained in thousands of pages of electronic correspondence that the State Department has released stood out because of the heavy markings blocking out sentences, and in some cases, entire messages being just black boxes, which is not really what you want to see when you're hoping for transparency and, accountability. You don't really want to see black boxes where there should be lines of text and paragraphs and ampersands and @ symbols and hashtags, or octothorpes, if you want to call them that. There should be all those things in there, but instead they're just blacked out. So the State Department officials who redacted the material cited national security, of course, as a reason for blocking it from public view, because national security actually trumps the public knowledge, apparently. Clinton, who is seeking the Democratic presidential nomination, was one of about 4 dozen State Department officials whose emails were redacted because of national security concerns, according to a Washington Post review. Those officials included top aides such as Jake Sullivan and Cheryl Mills, some of whom would likely be able to fill senior roles in the Clinton administration. All told, 188 of the emails that the State Department released contain classified materials. That's 188 out of the thousands of emails that were released. Now, that's not to downplay the fact that classified material was actually sent over these emails, according to the allegations. Now, there's not been a trial or anything, so these are all allegations at this point. I mean, yeah, we can look at them and we can see that, yes, there's classified information there, but you have to prove in a court that she's actually the one who sent them, all sorts of different reasons why it's allegations at this point and not just straight out accusing, accusations. There are accusations flying around, but we have to be fair. Because, yeah, I personally don't like Mrs. Clinton. I don't think she would make a very good president, personally. But, the legal system is fair to everyone. And as such, well, it's supposed to be anyway, and as such, these are only allegations at this point, and you'll hear nothing else from my reporting. So, regarding, of course, accusations, but it is just accusations at this point, and that's, I think, almost this is being overblown, but not quite. Here's the thing about the Clinton emails, though. This is very important. Some people have said that she was accessing her email server from her BlackBerry. Now, that is likely. That certainly is possible, yes. Something has to be kept in mind, though. Is she downloading the emails, or is she simply viewing them from a remote server? Because that actually is important. There are 2 different email protocols. There's IMAP, and then there's POP3. Now, I'm going to get them mixed up, but POP3 is downloading those emails, and IMAP is simply viewing them, and then it caches them and deletes them later. So POP3 is when you're downloading every single email every single time. That's why on your phone, you can check your email offline. Now, that's extremely important because that means that technically speaking, you could seize that phone and see if the emails are still there. Now, assuming she still logs into the same server, obviously she wouldn't, but there would be, if she's using the same phone, there would be some leftover data about that somewhere in the phone. I mean, if you put expert digital forensics officials onto this, then I'm sure they could find something. So it seems a little bit unlikely that there's no data. I don't know if the phone, the BlackBerry that she was given, was a government issue BlackBerry, because the government does issue BlackBerries, or if it was a BlackBerry which Clinton personally purchased, which of course is fine too. So we're not sure about that as of now. That's important, though, to note. If she also used a computer to access those emails, that's important too, because that computer could potentially hold data that's not on the server. There's always a possibility that something was wiped from the server that's not wiped from the computer she was viewing that information on. Clinton does not strike me as being technically illiterate. Unlike people like John McCain, she doesn't really strike me as being dumb when it comes to technology. I think she's been in the game long enough to figure out that she actually needs to learn how this stuff works. So I'm a little bit skeptical about her seemingly anyway, feigned lack of knowledge about the email systems. I think she knows more than she's letting on. The whole email thing is very strange anyway. It's very odd. There's a lot going on with these emails that are sketchy, to say the least. Of course, there are the Benghazi questions that should be asked. There are other things that could pop up as well. I mean, these emails need to be trawled through. We need to look through all of them. We need to find out, any keywords. We need to sit down and read thousands of emails. That's going to be really annoying, but that's just part of the job. When you're a news director, you got to do stuff for the news. So yes, I will be reading as many of the emails as I possibly can, and maybe there'll be something interesting in them. The State Department has apparently released them. I have to find a repository where I can actually get them, but that shouldn't be too hard. So, oh well. The Clinton emails are still, it's kind of a touchy subject for some, because people are, oddly enough, really sensitive about any criticism of Clinton. I don't really know why. If you're wondering why I'm not saying her full name, it's because I really struggle saying Hillary Clinton for some reason. My tongue always gets twisted up when I try to say Hillary Clinton. It just doesn't work for me. So I just call her Clinton or Mrs. Clinton, whatever. I mean no disrespect when I say that. Well, anyway, Netflix is pushing something called Night Shift that's actually caching shows on your home network in order to boost your speeds. So if you're having trouble streaming Netflix, Ars Technica has a story that can help you out. A startup called Atterlow Networks claims that it has a solution, downloading Netflix shows and caching them locally so that you can view them later without problems. Now, to explain, when you're watching Netflix, you're not just watching Netflix. I mean, it's not like you now have the show. If there's an interruption in your network, you lost the show. Kind of annoying, right? There's a thing called buffer. So if you're familiar with YouTube videos, when you're watching a YouTube video, there's the playhead, we'll call it the tape head or the playhead, that moves along the bottom of the screen. Now, ahead of that, there's sort of a darker, lighter gray bar that moves ahead of that, and that's called your buffer. So that bar actually represents how much video has been downloaded to your computer. So say if the network cuts out, that playhead will only go to the end of that gray bar. So that's just how that works. It has a buffer. Netflix is the same way, although I don't think it actually displays a buffer. I think it used to, but I don't think it does anymore. So the solution here is to actually just download the entire show or movie or whatever onto your computer temporarily, of course, and encrypted with DRM, so that you can watch it without any interruption if the network does cut out. That's a novel idea, but it also takes up quite a bit of disk space. Movies are not small. I mean, even if you're having a terabyte drive, they're not tiny. I mean, space is space, man. But it's an interesting idea anyway. It's called Night Shift. It's a service that could theoretically help anyone with slow home internet connections to access high-def Netflix video. But Atterlow is primarily targeting satellite internet customers who have to abide by strict data caps during the day and evening hours where most people are watching streaming video. Most satellite subscriptions in the U.S. have a 10 gigabyte to 25 gigabyte monthly usage restriction, which effectively makes it impossible to use Netflix or other streaming video, because you're going to be using sometimes several gigabytes for one movie. Now, that's fine if you have no data cap, like we don't here at the office. I don't at my home. Probably most of us don't if you're on EPB. Even Comcast, I don't think will cap you monthly. They might, but it's probably not that bad. And they might not count Netflix traffic towards your cache, by the way. I have to ask about that. I know RTC in my area, Ringgold Telephone Company, doesn't have a monthly cap, or at least it didn't when we left them. So I don't know. Some areas do and some areas don't. It's usually rural areas and satellite providers don't give you a data cap. So go figure. So satellite services usually do have really small monthly data caps, as in like 10 gigs a month or something ridiculous like that. They allow customers to download more data in the middle of the night when most people are asleep. For example, Viasat's Exceed internet service has monthly data caps of just 12 gigabytes to 30 gigabytes, tiny, but it allows unmetered usage for 5 hours each night, either from midnight to 5 a.m. or 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that's when Night Shift does its work, downloading shows and caching them onto your home network so that they can then be watched the next day without interruption or fear of exceeding those data caps. Adderlow says that Night Shift works automatically in the background, scheduling a recording when a customer starts watching a Netflix show on any device connected to the customer's home Wi-Fi network. Shows are then recorded during whatever hours of the day the customer has specified. So it's a pretty cool service. If you have bad internet, then that might be for you. Especially a lot of us, especially back in the day, in the early 2000s, especially when Netflix just came out with streaming, we had really bad internet at the time. Watching in HD was basically out of the question. So it's nice to see services like this where I can schedule it to download overnight so I can binge watch Star Trek Voyager sometime during the afternoon. It's very nice. It's a cool service. So Chipotle, if you're familiar, it's a pretty popular Southwestern restaurant, Southwestern food that's in the Southeast. It's weird. There's Southwestern food in the Southeast. There's a weird way to word that. Chipotle is a restaurant which sells essentially Southwestern food, but it exists here in the Southeast because we have them here anyway. You've seen them. Earlier this year, the restaurant chain Chipotle announced its usage of GMO-free foods. Cool. That announcement has since been amplified by advertisements and displays in its restaurants. Also cool. At least one California resident, however, thinks that the chain is actually not living up to its promises and is actually suing Chipotle under the state's Consumer Legal Remedies Act and is seeking class action status for the suit. The suit is carefully avoiding discussing whether eating GMO foods has any consequences for the plaintiff, thus neatly dodging the need to contain any scientific content. But it does contain some questionable logic. Some of the chain's meat and dairy products are coming from animals that were fed GMO food and therefore allegedly contain GMOs as well. So it seems like there's almost no escape from GMOs, which could potentially be true. GMOs, of course, are genetically modified organisms. There's quite a bit of debate about whether GMOs actually make any difference or not in terms of your health anyway. Won't get into that discussion. I'm sure you already have an opinion about that. So me telling you one thing or another is not going to help any situation at all. I tell you that GMOs are good for you, and then somebody will call in saying, I can't believe you'd say that. And I say GMOs are really terrible for you, and someone will call in saying, I can't believe you'd say that. So make up your mind for yourself. What do you think about GMOs? It's up to you, really. It's your consumer decision, your customer decision. I hate saying consumer because it's so barcode, man. Like every time I think of the word consumer, I just think of like a row of manufactured people, and they're each being scanned, and it's like, you are consumer number 2, you are consumer number 3, consumer number 4. And it's like, I hate that nonsense. Like, I hate the word consumer. It's so consumerist. So I prefer customer. But anyway, if you're a customer, then you can make that customer decision to buy whatever you want. So that's just your decision as a customer. If you don't want to buy GMO stuff, don't buy GMO stuff. If you don't want to buy organic stuff, there's a lot of options for you. So yeah. So the issue is not actually whether or not GMOs are good for you. That's kind of the funny thing about this lawsuit. The issue is not that. The issue is that is Chipotle being a little bit misleading with its advertising? That's what these allegations are pushing, is that Chipotle is being a little bit misleading with its advertising, saying that there are no GMOs in Chipotle food when that might actually not be true. At least that's what the allegations are positing. So it's an interesting debate anyway. What constitutes GMO free anyway? Is there any sort of standardized meter that we can point to and say, okay, this is GMO free, this is not? There's not, as far as I know anyway, there's not a standard for that. I don't believe the FDA has one. Not that I would put much credit towards the FDA anyway, but I don't think, just as an example, the FDA has one, or any sort of international committee or some sort of domestic committee for GMO free food. I don't know of any sort of review board. So the suit has been filed in the United States District Court of the Northern District of California on behalf of Colleen Gallagher and the class of Chipotle customer she's a part of. So said customers have allegedly seen anti-GMO advertising and have been deceived into buying Chipotle food or paying more for Chipotle products than they would have otherwise paid. It does not allege any actual damages from the food itself, which is probably a good thing, because then immediately Chipotle would say, well, there's no proof that GMOs have any proof or have any harm, and then that would be the argument instead of false advertising. So that's important that they don't bring that up. It actually cites a Pew Research poll showing that only 37% of the public think that GMOs are safe to consume, although it doesn't actually mention the same poll found that an overwhelming majority of scientists think that they are safe. Go figure. Are they being paid off? I don't know. So the suit does tackle the science bit when it gets to the background section. There, it mostly does a good job noting that the technique allows new traits to be introduced one at a time without unwanted complications. And basically, it's just a summary of what GMOs are for the lawsuit, just so everyone's clear on that. So it's an interesting debate anyway. In the age of tech where everything is engineered to suit us, a lot of us are actually not wanting our food to be engineered to suit us. And isn't that kind of an interesting sort of twist? In a world where everything is engineered perfectly, our cars are designed to wrap around us, our phones are designed to fit in the palms of our hands with a certain margin of error, our pants are designed to have a little bit of leeway around the waist, our shirts are designed, if you're a man, to be like a box for some reason. I guess that's perfect engineering. Our monitors are designed to have a perfect viewing distance at 2 to 3 meters away from a 17-inch screen. All sorts of different, 17, no way, a 30-inch screen, all sorts of different things that are perfectly engineered. This light bulb has a perfect amount of lumens that are exactly right for your eyes, and they refresh at a certain hertz rate so that you don't hurt your eyes. All sorts of different things are perfectly engineered for every aspect of our lives, but we don't want our food to be. Isn't that kind of interesting? And I'm not passing judgment on either side of that, because I'm a little bit on the fence about it, to be quite honest. I can understand arguments for and against GMOs. I can. And I would be totally hypocritical if I said I was 100% against GMO food, because I eat it. So, so it's an interesting debate, though, because we're wanting certain things to be engineered, but not other things. So it's kind of odd that we are that way, I guess. And that's just humanity. And that's cool. There's been a lot of negativity swirling around, and I'm getting kind of tired of it, actually, because I think that we humans are very interesting creatures because we are so experimental. We keep experimenting with all sorts of different things, and we have so many different intellectual debates, and it's just so fascinating to me that we are the way we are. And I'm happy that we are the way that we are, actually. So anyway, this is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We're going to be bringing you continuing coverage of the Lieutenant Commander Timothy White March, which is on Georgia Avenue and M.L. King. So go and show your support if you want to. We have some folks from Hot News Talk Radio down there. You can go and say hi. Tell them that Russell says hi, because that'd be really funny if you did that down at Hot News Talk Radio at Georgia and M.L. King. So definitely check that out. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose is coming up next right here, Hot News Talk Radio. He is our resident sports expert. He knows more about sportsing than I do, which is a good thing because I know nothing at all about sportsing. I played Ultimate Frisbee a few years ago. I was mediocre at it. People were getting very frustrated with me, so I gave it up. But I was decently okay at Ultimate Frisbee for a little while there. I tried out volleyball, didn't work out too well for me. I tried tennis, that really didn't work out for me. My calves were burning, man, and I had horrible blisters. So never again will I do tennis. I'll stick to being really bad at esports. I play Heroes of the Storm more often than I play anything else. So that's just my thing now. When I'm not playing SimCity 2000, I'm probably playing Heroes of the Storm. So if you want to catch me on battle.net, let me know. You can shoot me a tweet at Mecha Keller on Twitter. You can actually tweet me Generation Z1240 on Gmail. That's Generation Z1240 if you want to hit me up on Gmail, so you can do that too. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. And again, don't forget, one of the best ways to listen to us actually is on your smartphone with the TuneIn Radio app. I have an Android phone, and I use it all the dang time. It's on my homepage. I'm just always on the TuneIn Radio app. And I also have it on my computer as well. It has a web-based interface as well. So very high-tech, really cool, very well-engineered stuff for your smartphone. And it's very, very nice. I just like it a lot. Speaking of very nice and well-engineered, hotnewstalkradio.com is another way to listen to us streaming live. So if you don't have the app, or maybe you don't have a smartphone, and that's fine too, you can check us out on the website, hotnewstalkradio.com. Also, while you're there, check out the cool deals we have, hotnewstalkradio.com, and then click on the half-off link for some of the great deals. And again, Clutch with Keon Rose is coming up next. He's our resident sports expert. He's going to be talking about sports and all sorts of other cool things right here, Hot News Talk Radio.
This is a mob world. This is the mob world. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Heating up out there through the afternoon with partly cloudy skies. Dry for